Powering on. Charge complete. Mic off.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all doing today? Well, I hope. Time for another tabletop tournament. All right, let's do away with this, and let me readjust these so they're actually correct. One moment. We've got boop and boop and boop. Boop. I think that one's right. See, Goblet Slayer goes. Okay, Goblet Slayer goes here. And Turn and Falcon go here. I don't know why it snaps. It bothers me that it does that. Just stop. Nope, stop. Fuck it. Fuck it. You can read it. That's all that matters. Boop. Yeah, we finally got the bracket figured out. Okay, I believe this is all correct. Yep. Okay, just gotta move Gojira so that his name is actually in the right spot. Boom! Alright, so we actually have brackets this week. Isn't that exciting? It's all pretty and it works and it's great and awesome. So that is the brackets for this week. This is a Christian server. What? Who the fuck? Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get the first matchup ready and set to go. And you know what? I just realized I need to put all this junk way lower in priority. No, I don't. I just have to move Total War so that it's higher in priority. Boop. And camera is higher in priority. Boop. Hi guys. How we doing today? Good, I hope. Boop. Have I read the new battle tome for the Gloomspite kits? Not yet. Not yet. Can't afford to pick it up because I had to drop a lot of money on student loans recently. Getting all that sorted out. Whoops. I'm not playing. Other people are playing. Alright. So, somebody's a goof. Open spectator slot, please. If you think this is going to be a Christian channel, I got bad news for you, kids. I got bad news for you. Alright, so for the first matchup, we've got Gojira, also known as Slowjira, very aptly named Slowjira, I might add, versus a newcomer, Alien Ambassador. So we've got Beastmen versus Dwarves. So the Dwarves are taking another whack at trying to make it to the finals this week. The Dwarves have not had the best of luck in this series of challenges, so we'll have to see if this is the week. With only one, Evan, I like that. With only clicking one like button, you could potentially feed a YouTuber. Just have that super sad music playing in the background. I need to have a really old dude with a white beard, like just walking around my house as I'm like working on scripts and stuff, and he's like, look at this poor creature. Think of what you can do by just watching a couple of advertisements every video and clicking that like button and sharing the video with your friends. You could help feed this pitiful thing. What grudges are the Dwarves avenging today? There's a lot of grudges against Beastmen. Beastmen don't typically go out against the Dwarves, but every once in a while they will, they'll wander into each other, and the Dwarves are not fond of them. There's actually a really famous story of a Beastman herd that got so drunk that they had like a massive rampage towards a Dwarf hold. And they actually would have completely overwhelmed it if it weren't for the fact that the entire Beastman war herd passed out just outside of siege range. And when they all woke up, they were so hungover, they just decided to quit the field and left. Anyway, let's take a look at these Beastmen. So, Gojira over here is being led by none other than Malagor the Dark Omen, also known as the Crow Father. He's bringing Devolve, Mantle of Gorok, and Savage Dominion as his spells. Then for units, looks like he's got 3 units of Ungor Spearman Herd, 2 units of Ungor Herd. We've got the Korex Man Rippers, who will be really, really solid in this battle with their heavy armor piercing. And then we've got a lot of Minotaurs, who, if they can make it alive to the Dwarven line, these guys will be beastly. There's a lot of Minotaurs. I just realized this is on huge unit size. One second. I'm not super worried about the unit sizes being too large. We'll just fix it before the next match, but unless one of them protests. Also for the Beastmen, we've got 2 units of Synagors with throwing axes and Chaos Warhounds with poison. And we'll have that fixed before the next match. Then over here on the Dwarf side, we've got 4 units of Dwarf Warriors making a nice solid front line. We've got 2 units of Miners on the flanks, 3 units of Slayers in the back, one of which is the Dragonback Slayers. For the Lord, we've got a Rune Lord with all of his equipment. He's got all the things. Yeah, he's got all 3 runes. He's got the Rune of Hearth and Home. He's got the Gatekeeper's Belt. That is a kitted out Rune Lord. We've also got our regular Runesmith here who only has Wrath and Ruin. Pretty typical. Then we've got the Peak Gate Guard riding in the center here, wielding their Rune Hammers, ready to go to town on some Beastman faces. And then along the flanks, we've got 2 units of chevroned up Bugman's Rangers. And the very center, we have the Norgrimling's Ironbreaker, so a very, very elite core to this dwarf army. But we'll have to see how they're going to handle the heavy skirmish play of the Beastmen. Those Bugman Rangers need to go ahead and start shooting into the Synagors. But a early Rune of Wrath and Ruin does go down on the Synagors, which is an excellent pick. Can't argue with that. These units with their throwing axes are probably the most dangerous thing to the Dwarven line. So that's a pretty solid idea right there. Looking at the Beastmen army here, the Beastmen are easily going to be able to crash and destroy this Dwarven front line. I'm not 100% sure how they're going to do against these super elite units. I think the Minotaurs are more than capable of dealing with Norgrimlings, but these Peak Gate Guard actually could be a bit of a problem. Regardless though, the Beastmen are beginning to come downhill, and as Bugman's opens up on them, they're probably going to go ahead and engage here shortly. Synagors with throwing axes are doing a great job of just meandering around the edges, throwing axes being annoying. And it looks like Malagor's about to summon up a Cygor. Yep. So we've got the big boy pulling himself out of the earth. Excuse me. Got a little bit of drainage today. Anyway, so this Beastman, this Ungor herd, pretty much already off the field. But oh, perfect shot from the Cygor, just killing 15 Peak Gate Guard with a single shot. That is incredible. Here we see the Shielded Minotaur are running into the battle against the Dwarf Warriors with shields. They are more than equipped to deal with them, and they do have shields, so they won't take too much damage from these Bugman's Rangers, which is nice. They do have silver shields, so as long as they keep their shields up in the front. Over here, though, we do see that one of the Synagor units has been pretty much has been brought down very, very heavily. But those boulders are continuing to come in, so these dwarves do need to hurry up and get engaged. That is not something they want to just sit back and take. The Dwarven front line now is fully engaged against all of the Minotaurs and infantry. We see the Karex Man-Rippers are going to reinforce this flank, which is looking a little spooky. Looks like a Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin goes down on the Butchers of Kalkengard. Not the best cast. They're not a unit that's in a vulnerable position right now, and they do have regeneration, so they're just going to be healing back the damage, especially since there's not that many of them. Oh, and here we see a Mantle of Gorak going down on these Minotaurs with shields. It reduces their armor by 30, but gives them a ton of weapon damage and a ton of melee attack. They're going to absolutely shred these Dwarf Warriors, but Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, if they respond with these blasting charges, could actually do a ton of damage because they only have 15 armor, so that actually can hurt them a lot. Here we see the Beastmen have seen off the front line, and some Slayers do run into the battle, but they're up against Karex Man-Rippers, who will easily cut down those Slayers like they're made out of butter, because they just have no armor up against the very heavy armor of the Karex Man-Rippers. So that's an ideal matchup for them. Over here, the Minotaurs do decide to run in and reinforce against these Peak Gate Guard and trying to surround the Rune Lord. The Peak Gate Guard are actually doing a very, very exceptional job against the Minotaurs, but a Devolve does go down here, which is going to lower the leadership and do a bit of damage to these dwarves. Not a ton, because they do have decent magic resistance. We do see Norgrimling's Ironbreakers have managed to do pretty well with those blasting charges, but they've taken a lot of boulders for the trouble. So they've taken about an equivalent amount of damage, but they are a much more valuable unit. Overall, it's looking very bad for the Dwarves and very good for the Beastmen. Though, it looks like the Dragonback Slayers somehow, I don't even know, I didn't even see how they did this, managed to sneak around the back and have gotten on the summoned Cygor, so he's about to go offline. Back here, we can see the Synagors with throwing axes are ping-ponging their way between the various archer units. Bugman's Rangers, that is, trying to get them offline, trying to get that shooting off the field so the Beastmen can claim true victory. The balance of power is a tiny, tiny bit in the Beastmen's favor, but not much. So it's still possible for the Dwarves to rally as long as they can slowly begin to consolidate their forces, especially these Dragonback Slayers. They are super important. Gojira has already used too much magic to get a second Cygor summon, more than likely. However, he's getting completely overwhelmed in the center and on this flank over here. We do see another Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin going down on these Minotaurs, which is not the most ideal target. There's not enough unit models in that unit to take the most damage. But Norgumlee's Ironbreakers are holding out surprisingly well against this superior force. And the Dragonback Slayers do run into the rear here, where they are into the Minotaurs, and they will do really, really solid damage. So if the Dwarves can rally to this center line, they might be able to turn the tide. However, some Ungor Spearmen Herd do rally and charge into the back of the Dragonback Slayers, and they are a perfect unit for dealing with Dragonback Slayers, especially while they're already occupied. They don't have the best stats, but Dragonback Slayers don't have any armor. They do have fairly high melee defense, but since they're being attacked in the rear, that melee defense will be reduced significantly, and these Ungor Spearmen will be actually able to do pretty consistent damage. We do see Malagor is just kind of standing off to the side here, trying to generate some more winds of magic, and the Dwarf line has stabilized here, and the Minotaurs are starting to crumble. So if the Dwarves can hold out just long enough, they might be able to turn the tide. You see the balance of power has shifted back to the middle as the Dwarves have a super Death Star building up over here that is not unbreakable, but it's doing pretty well. But we see Gojira notices this and immediately charges in, but the Dwarves pop a perfect Master Rune of Negation, and all of these Dwarves are immune to psychology thanks to the Master Rune of Hearth and Home down here that we see on the Rune Lord, just the Rune of Hearth and Home. So they don't care about fear, except for the Rune Lord's now moving too far away, so now fear is kicked in and all these guys are breaking. So, but the balance of power is now turned against the Beastmen. They really do need to be careful or get something bigger on the field. We do see that they have shattered Bugman's Rangers over on the flank, so there's no more shooting attacks available for the Dwarves. They have to win purely through combat now. But they do have the advantage thanks to this massive amount of Slayers. Things are looking really, really good for the Beastmen at first. But unfortunately, it looks like he may have gotten a little too... He may have built all of his Minotaurs up too much into a single combat, when he probably... Gojira probably needed to be ping-ponging his Minotaurs from battle to battle to battle to try and keep up their really nice charge bonus to make sure that they were just doing constant damage. Whereas he kept them engaged in single combat, so the Dwarves were slowly but surely able to pick the combats they weren't involved, win those battles against the inferior Beastmen infantry, and now the massive amount of Slayers are rallying together to deal with what remains, especially all the Minotaurs. And there's still two Dwarf characters who aren't necessarily great fighters, but they are very sturdy. Norgumlee's Ironbreakers do spend the last of their blasting charges there, but it does give Malagor the time he needs to get away. And as long as Malagor is alive, there's a good chance the Beastmen will rally bit by bit. But this is a really powerful Dwarf Death Star that's still here. And that super core of the Peak Gateguard and the Norgumlee's Ironbreakers, I mean, these guys have ridiculous leadership. They are not going to go anywhere if there's not some terror causer on the field. Here we see that the butchers, or those regular Minotaurs, have completely shattered. It looks like the Beastmen are starting to fall apart. Malagor is really the only iron-clad piece left, and it looks like he's kind of just throwing himself into melee. It looks like he's kind of just given up at this point. The butchers of Kalkengard are trying to rally so that something maybe can get done, but Malagor is completely surrounded, and there are Slayers in there who are easily going to tear him apart thanks to his low armor. And I'm pretty sure that's game, chat. Yeah. So with that, the Dwarves have successfully put down the Beastmen. And we are past our first match. This is a good game. I actually thought that the Beastmen had that, but it looks like that, yeah, that super elite core hiding at the center of the Dwarf army just did a ton of work. I mean, the Slayers obviously pulled their weight without a doubt, and the Bugman's Rangers got a ton of kills, either through shooting or through combat. You have to remember that they're actually a fairly exceptional combat unit with their great axes. They can pull their weight. And although Gojira's Minotaur Corps did really, really well, his basic infantry were pretty much useless, and they weren't able to get a lot done against these Dwarf Warriors and Miners and such. So, tis unfortunate, but it was a very, very close game. The Dwarves have won, and Alien Ambassador will be going on to the semifinals. Alright, let's move on to game 2. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and update the... Let's update this bracket, since we can do that now. I just realized I should put those as different scenes. Note for next time. Alright, so Alien Ambassador has taken the first match, so he gets to go over here. Alright. Magic D! Thank you, brother, for the donation. I have absolutely no idea what currency that is, but thank you so much for the generous donation. MX. Does anybody know what that is? It's red, which means it's a, or it's pink, which means it's a, which means it's a generous donation. Oh, that's the peso? Nifty. All right. Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate the support. Why is it not showing up on my... I might have to relaunch Streamlabs later. Alright, let's move on to the second game. Thank you again, Magic D. Appreciate it, brother. Hope you're doing well down there. I know times are hard down south. Alright, so this game we've got Flying Taco bringing the Lizardmen up against Rigson's Greenskins. Let's see some love in chat. Do you think that the great plan of the old ones will succeed, or are you with the wah? Alright, so let's start with the Lizardmen. Leading the charge, we've got a Lord Mazdamundi up on Slack, and he's got Harmonic Convergence, Curse of the Midnight Wind, and Apotheosis. Really solid spell list. For his army, looks like we've got 2 units of Skink Skirmishers. Where'd they all go? There they are. We've got 4 units of Saurus Warriors with shields, a Bastillodon with Revification Crystal. We've got, I think, 1 unit, yep, of Croxagors. We've got a Feral Carnosaur, very cool pick. A unit of Pterodon Riders, a unit of Cold One Spear Riders, and I believe that's everything. So a pretty mixed list coming in from the Lizardmen, bringing a lot of different units. Some we actually have not seen in this tournament style before. Over here on the Greenskin side, however, we see a pretty awesome looking list, quite frankly, bringing a lot of really interesting units. We've got a Goblin Rock Lava, just a regular one, being protected by a unit of Nasty Skulkers. We've got, looks like, 4 units of Black Orcs, forming a really powerful core line. We've got 2 units of Goblins in the front, looks like to absorb charges and just be a nuisance. We've got a unit of Night Goblins. This is the unbreakable one that comes with Fanatics. The 8-Peak Loonies. We've then got 2 units of Savage Orc Error Boys, who of course have a surprising amount of AP, considering they're not an armor-piercing ranged unit, and they're actually fairly good at defending themselves in close combat. then we've also got the Arachnarok Queen, Regiment of Renown, and leading the army, we've got Azhag the Slaughterer up with Spirit Leech, and let me close the door real quick, chat, one moment, because it's probably about to be loud downstairs. Clean as Nurgle, thanks so much for the very, very generous donation, brother. I appreciate it. I work a lot, so I never get to catch the stream, but here's for being my favorite YouTuber. Man, I appreciate that. Thanks so much for the $100 donation, brother. That is very generous. Oh, go. That is very, 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 very generous. Thank you. And then Captain Ruffy. I don't know why the freaking Streamlab isn't working. I'll fix it after the escape. Captain Ruffy coming in with the 20 NOK, who says, can you give me some fun facts of the Lizardmen? Sure, I can give you a fun fact. Did you know that all Lizardmen units spawn together? So, like, every unit is basically a family that came out and they were all birthed at the same time. So, like, they're all, like, 20 uplets, or however you would say that. Or 100 uplets. But most Lizardmen units, obviously, as they get older and some die off, they can be reformed into further units. But many of them stick together with their siblings until they all die, fulfilling their part in the great plan. Alright, so the battle has begun. Obviously there are exceptions, like Gorok. Gorok was the only one who came out of his spawning. Gorok came out by himself. Alright, so we already have some, we have a Spirit Leech going on with the Still on Retrification Crystal. Not a bad idea. It does get through the heavy armor of the beast and starts to slowly drain its health to make sure that it hopefully won't be around as long. And here we see Mazda Money has actually run out very, very far ahead of the line. I'm a little worried about this because that Arachnarok Queen can absolutely, like, grand slam him in a battle. Though he does pop Harmonic Convergence on himself, which will allow him to go toe-to-toe with the Arachnarok Queen. Though the poison is going to counteract that a little bit. He's still taking a ton of damage. We do see a Ruination of Cities go down, but unfortunately the randomization chance for it is not that great. It doesn't hit a ton of valuable targets. And man, we've got just a monster fight going on down here. But it is not going well for Mazdamundi. Looks like he's just trying to get these Black Orcs off the field, but he's being very aggressive with Mazdamundi. We do see a Spirit Leech going on, and despite the shield of the old ones, Mazdamundi is taking a ton of damage. But, oh, that Carnosaur is coming in. Big Chongus is coming in. And, oh boy, yeah, he does a ton of damage to that Arachnarok Queen right off the bat. We see that the melees around the field, Wa has been popped, giving some really nice buffs to the Black Orc line, which is pretty crucial. We see Azhag is diving in among the Pterodons to start taking them on in combat and hopefully try and take them down, get them off the field. All of the ranged units for the Orcs are doing fairly well. Some Spiderlings are summoned beneath the Sink Skirmishers, which they will dominate in combat, trying to get them off the field. Here, the Carnosaur is dueling against the Arachnarok Spider in a battle of the Monster Killers, while Azhag dives down on Mazdamundi and is trying to get him off the field. But it looks like another Spirit Leech coming on Mazdamundi. That Rev Crystal needs to get to work, and there it is. The Rev Crystal immediately coming in to counteract the Spirit Leech and try and keep Mazdamundi under control. Looks like he uses the Spiderlings to give himself a charge animation to get a little bit of distance, but those Savage Orc Arrow Boys are fully capable of doing quite a bit of damage to him. Looks like he pops Apotheosis on himself to continue the healing, and overall things are looking pretty messy. The balance of power has shifted in favor of the Greenskins as Azhag dives in for another kill. He does need to be very careful though. These Cold One Spirit Riders can absolutely slam dunk him, and it looks like they jump on him, so it's going to be hard for him to get in the air. I mean, his mount is pretty quick, but okay, as long as he runs through friendly units, he will be able to get up in the air successfully. Mazdamundi is looking very, very weak. Over here, the Croxgors have managed to push this fight with the Saurus in favor of the Lizardmen, but everywhere else, the Black Orcs are pretty heavily dominating the front line. Those Orc Arrow Boys, who do have a decent amount of armor piercing, are still shooting in on Mazdamundi and doing quite a bit of damage. And Azhag and the Arachnarok, or the Spider Queen, or the Arachnarok Queen, are continuing to just absolutely slam on Mazdamundi, trying to bring him down. But Mazdamundi is doing a really good job of keeping healing focused on himself, not presenting his rear so they get that bonus to dealing with him. So he is managing to keep up heals, but he's starting to get really, really low. The spider's got him down to 900 health, and Aztek's coming in for a charge from the rear, which means that that melee defense isn't going to be there for Mazdamundi. He just get off a Ruination of Cities to do quite a bit of damage there, but Mazdamundi only has 600 health. But he does get a Rev Crystal, which is probably going to allow him to rally as long as Aztek does not start immediately charging him. The Ragnarok Queen is taking a ton of damage, but the balance of power is shifting heavily against the Lizardmen. They have lost the entire front line. Aztek is going after Mazdamundi, so the odds of him rallying are very, very tiny, especially since Aztek is much, much faster. The Ragnarok Queen does push forward and is continuing to do lots of damage while the Carnosaur is trying to finish the Ragnarok Queen off. And with the Spirit Leech, there is absolutely no way Mazdamundi is coming back. Aztek is being slowed down by the poison from the Skinks, but that's not going to last much longer, especially since some of the shots are accidentally hitting Mazdamundi. And Mazdamundi is definitely gone. He'll be dead in one more hit. Oh, Mazdamundi gets the hell out of dodge. Zlak goes down, and that is game. So, the Lizardmen have been defeated, and the Greenskins claim victory with a really, really solid win. Yeah, the Greenskins, really awesome list from the Greenskins. Just an absolute powerhouse of armor piercing. The Lizardmen were just, whew, that was a very nice army to deal with lizards. Great game there. All right, so for the semifinals, we will be looking at Rixen versus Alien. So it means we're gonna have that classic matchup again of Dwarves versus Greenskins for the semifinals. If I can figure out which one's Rixen, there we go. Yada-da-da. Alright, so now it's time for one of the community favorites. Time for a throwdown of legend. We have none other than Tourney versus our 3-week consecutive champion, Falcon. So we'll have to see if Tourney can finally dethrone the king himself. Crisp, oh no, that's just the Slon teleporting away. They die like anybody dies. Amornar, thanks man, I will try to keep being awesome. And for this matchup, we've got the Dwarves versus even more Lizardmen. We'll have to see who can come out on top this time. Krokgar versus Waluigi. I'd probably have to give it to Waluigi. I mean, the dude needs a win, man. He needs a win. Sometimes you just gotta give it to the man. Alright, so let's begin with Turn's Dawi. So he's got a, so we have a dwarf cannon that it's going to be providing the artillery. We've got a unit of, looks like we've got 4 units of dwarf warriors, 4 units of miners with some chevrons scattered around, 2 units of longbeards with great weapons, 2 units of slayers, one is the giant slayers, one is the dragonback slayers, 4 units of thunderers, and then a rune lord who only has the master rune of wrath and ruin, and a rune smith who only has the rune of wrath and ruin. So very, very, very wide dwarf army that is really designed to just try and make every point matter. Meanwhile, over here on the Lizardman side, we've got a light Slon who brought to the party Fa's Protection, Bjorna's Time Warp, the Blood Statue of Spite, and the Aura of Quetzal. So he's running all of his items, which are very, very powerful, and he's running pretty solid buff magic. Meanwhile, for his main force, we've got 2 units of Horned Ones, unit of Kroxigors, 2 units of Skink Cohorts with Javelins, another unit of Kroxigors. A lot of Kroxigors, actually. So we've got 3 units of Kroxigors, 3 units of Horned Ones, a Pharaoh Carnosaur, 3 units of Skink Cohorts with Javelins, 2 units of Skink Cohorts that are very high chevroned up, and then a Slon. So a very, very elite Lizardmen army. They have a ton of armor piercing. Really what this is going to come down to is if Turin can do enough work to the Lizardmen army before they make it across the field. Because this Lizardmen army will absolutely annihilate the Dwarves if they cross the field in fairly good health. I mean, this is so much heavy armor piercing. It is just bonkers. The real question will be, can the cannon or the dwarf shooting take out the Slon fast enough to render his buffs off the field? And can the dwarves protect themselves from just the onslaught here? There are some things that are pretty heavily in the dwarves' favor. For instance, the Carnosaur is not going to be terribly useful. It doesn't have the highest stat line, and it's mostly just super good against large entities, obviously, which the dwarves do not have any. And that cannon is going to get a ton of value if it fires any shots into the Horned Ones, because a cannonball will auto-kill any Horned Ones that it hits. I can't spell. The Kroxigors will do well, unless obviously they go up against the Slayers. Okay, and we're off. So the Lizardman line is beelining for the Dwarf line. The Dwarves look like they're already looking to rearrange a fair bit. The first cannon shot has opened up on the Kroxigors. The Kroxigors are a solid target, but oh my gosh, every single... Look at that. Those 2 cannonballs threaded that needle. They absolutely just doinked between those Kroxigors. That is rough. Milkaway, he probably went with the Carnosaur because remember, you have to, for this tournament, you have to pick your list before the tournament, and then you have to play with that list the entire tourney. Man, these Kroxigors are just not getting hit. So that's the second full volley from the cannon, and they barely dunked a Kroxigor on the head. Alright, here we see the lines are beginning to meet. The Horned Ones are immediately trying to get through the flank here, and it looks like they're passing through, but the cannon gets a nice shot on 2 units here. Thunderers are trying to fall back, but man, those Horned Ones are going to do so much damage. A bunch of these units are going to get torn apart, but a Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin and a regular Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Oh no, sorry, that's just that unit split up. So first Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin goes down the Horned Ones, which is a perfect target. The Carnosaur does run into battle, but these Giant Slayers are absolutely going to butcher that thing if it doesn't get the hell out of there. The cannon is still safe for the moment, and the longer that cannon's up, the more damage these Horned Ones are going to take. We do see the first Horned One unit did rampage, but a Cold-Blooded immediately goes down to keep them under control. If that cannon gets off another good volley into this batch, though, I mean, these Horned Ones are going to get absolutely... Oof! Yeah, see, like, they're just absolutely going down. Meanwhile, the Skinks are having a pretty hard time pushing through the front line, but the Kroxigors should be able to get through the Dwarf Warriors without too much trouble, though their charge defense against large will be helpful. Here we see the Carnosaur tries to disengage from the Dragonback Slayers, but unfortunately for him, he rampages, and the Cold-Blooded has already been spent on the Horned Ones, so that Carnosaur is just going to fight till he dies or breaks. The Thunderers are doing an absolutely great job of just mowing stuff down. And here we do see a banishment go down on the Dwarves, which is going to do a hell of a lot of damage to the Dragonback Slayers. Really, really solid cast there from the Slon Mage Priest, who looks like he's moving forward to try and get engaged. Wow, that did a ton of damage to the Dwarves. Here he does throw down a shield to the old ones to try and protect the Kroxigors. The Horned Ones, for the most part, have been pretty heavily cut down. They're still fighting, but things are not looking great. The Slon is popping all of his buffs to try and provide some support. This cannon needs to go offline, which it might. The Carnosaur has rallied and he's charging it against the Dwarves, and the Carnosaur could actually be very useful in this main large fight here, as he does cause terror which if he runs in here with that terror causing, the dwarves could start getting terror routed, and that could cause some issues. Here we see the cannon is trying to get off some shots against the Slawn. Oh no, it looks like it's still going into the Horn One Riders, who it's almost completely taken offline. But the cannon looks like it has been secured as 3 units of Thunderers turn around and to absolutely eviscerate this Carnosaur. The balance of power is starting to swing slowly but surely into the Dwarves' favor, and understandably, this list is really, really well designed. Tourney clearly was not pulling any punches. And here we see that the Carnosaur is dead, and it has gone down. The Dwarves are starting to rally and pull back to the main army. The Kroxigors are all centered in one location and are starting to slowly but surely fall apart. This cannon is doing a great job of making sure these Horde 1 riders get absolutely annihilated and don't come back. Here we've got Longbeards and other dwarf units jumping on the Slaw Mage Priest. Bjorn's Time Warp does go down on the Kroxigors, upping their melee attack to 52 and making them very, very fast with 58 speed, but it's just, I don't think it's going to be enough to turn the tide. There's just a ton of dwarves, and there's just not that many Lizardmen units. This Lizardmen army was very elite, but very small, which unfortunately this dwarf army is literally designed to deal with. This is a dwarf army that's clearly designed to deal with a lot of the lists we've seen from Velcon in the last few weeks, which Velcon typically tends to run armies that are very elite, but don't have like a ton of units. But, I mean, Velcon has won the last 3 weeks in a row really, really well. So, only thing pretty much left at this point is the Slawn and a couple of rallying units. We do see another really juicy banishment go down, and oh man, it is just sitting on top of these dwarves. That's doing so much damage. Oh my lord, the Slawn, like, despite the fact that the Lizardmen are almost certainly doomed, the Slawn certainly got his points worth. I'm surprised the Horned Ones are still coming back and fighting. Their leadership is really solid. Despite the fact there are so few models left, and, you know, the Lizardmen probably could be losing to army losses right now, these Horned Ones are just fighting to the very, very bitter end. And just a really, just a beautiful rear charge there. Meanwhile, we've got these Kroxigors trying to rally to the main fight, but unfortunately they're going to get absolutely shredded by these Thunderers. Because Kroxigors actually do have fairly high missile resistance, but their leadership is so low that the leadership damage they're going to take from getting shot is just too much. And pretty much the only thing left at this point are these Horned Ones and this Slaw Mage Priest, which, you know, they're going to continue being a nuisance, but that cannon's going to do a really good job making sure this Slaw Mage Priest regrets his life choices. And here we see the army losses does kick in, and Velcon has been defeated. The prophecy has come true. When is the next RPG? I don't know. Anna's in Poland right now, so it might be a bit. She's visiting her family, so we'll probably have to wait until she's back. All right, so Turin has claimed victory. And the Dwarves are looking really good this week, guys. Could it be that the grudge is finally going, all those grudges are finally going to be settled? Are the Dwarves at long last finally going to reclaim vengeance? We'll have to see. Alright, let's move on to the final prelim battle, where we've got Professor Pone versus Gobbo Slayer, and we've got the Empire versus the Tomb Kings. Mikaway, has CA released news on the Lizardmen DLC? Nope. Oh, Black Iron, you're gonna make me blush. Has there been any Empire since these tournaments started? Yes, Ziprion. Oh, excuse me. There's been some Empire. They haven't won any tournaments yet. The only the factions who have won so far, week 1 was Vampire Coast. Week 2 was Tomb Kings. Week 3 was Lizardmen. Week 4 was Wood Elves. And I believe we're in week 5. Alright, so let's start with the Tomb Kings under the Gobbo Slayer. We've got 2 units of Carrion, 2 Tomb Scorpions, 3 units of Skeleton Spearmen, one of which is King Nekesh's Scorpion Legion with their lovely poisoned attacks. Then we've got a unit of Tomb Guard with halberds. We've got a unit of Skeleton Archer Chariots and regular Skeleton Chariots. Then we've got the Big Daddy himself, the Hyro Titan. And for leadership, we've got Archon the Black on foot with all of his items. And then he's got Purple Sun and Spirit Leech. Interesting choice of spells there. Purple Sun is a really powerful spell if you can get it to work right. And then we've got a Necrotect here who's got Vambraces of the Sun, Restore, and Elixir of Might. Vambraces of the Sun is kind of an interesting pick. Not a lot of fire damage in this army. I think maybe the Hyro Titan. Yeah, the Hyro Titan does fire damage. So clearly those two are designed to try and work together. Meanwhile, over here on the Empire side, we've got the Hammer of the Witches, which is going to be an absolute nightmare for the Tomb Kings and their chariots. We've got a unit. We got the Royal Altdorf Griffites, very, very famous unit. Oh, it's raining. How lovely. Then we've got, for leadership, we've got Karl Franz with the Reichland Runefang and Galmaraz, which is, that bothers me. He shouldn't be able to have both. He should have one or the other. I wish they would give him the Silver Seal as his other item, but whatever. Random point. Then we've got 2 units of handguns, one of which is the Silver Bullets. Then we've got, for heroes, we've got a Jade Wizard with Regrowth and Earthblood. We've got a Witch Hunter with Accusation and Slippery. Got 2 units of Great Swords, and then a front line of Spearmen with Shields reinforced by Sigmar's Sons. And Pone has to go to the bathroom. I just wanted you all to know that, chat. If Pone comes into chat after this game, y'all need to make sure to ask him how his bathroom visit was. Make sure that you, like, press for details. What do y'all think, chat? I think my money is on the Empire. I think the Hammer of the Witches is going to get a ton of value against this Tomb King army. Though I think it ultimately comes down to if the Empire can defend their guns. If they can defend their guns, then they have a really good way to deal with the Tomb Scorpions. Though the Royal Altdorf Griffites and Karl Franz can also deal with them very effectively. Archon the Black will need to be careful because he's on foot. So he could very easily get sniped out by Karl Franz if he's not careful. It's gonna be it's gonna be a hard fight for Gobbo Slayer, I think. But Gobbo Slayer is a really good player. He has shown that in prior weeks of this tournament. So we'll have to see what happens. Alright, and we're off. Alright, the Tomb Kings are advancing. And the cannons have opened fire. And whiff. Tomb Scorpions are difficult to hit, even though the Hammer of the Witches is rank 9, so it actually has really exceptional accuracy. Oh, I did forget about the Carrion, though. The Carrion actually might prove very, very vital in this fight. If they can shut down the Hammer of the Witches, even for a little bit, that's going to generate a ton of value. Here we see that the Hydro Titan takes a ton of damage from the Hammer of the Witches getting a really nice barrage. But the Necrotect does have Restore, I believe, so he should be able to provide some healing. Here we see the Carrion looks like swoop down into these handgunners. Meanwhile, this unit swoops down into the Hammer of the Witches, and I don't think Pone noticed them because he's taking a little bit to respond. Though, Pone does a really good job here of immediately telling the Hammer of the Witches to get the hell out of dodge and responding with the Royal Altdorf Griffites, who will do a very good job of clearing them off. Here we see Franz. Man, that's like that is so heat-seeking. It doesn't do any damage, but it did connect. Over here, we see that the Chariots did manage to slip around the side. Gobble Slayer excellently, very professionally taking advantage of when the cannon was offline and gets into the Silver Bullets and absolutely wrecks them. Obviously, the Royal Altdorf Griffites are going to be able to punish him very significantly for this, but the Silver Bullets getting knocked down to half health was easily worth it. Meanwhile, the Carrion do dive in back on the Hammer of the Witches, and the Hammer of the Witches is probably doomed at this rate. Over here, we do see the Scorpion, though, is being focused down by Karl Franz, who has popped the Reichland Runefang, providing a lot of buffs to his troops. And that Tomb Scorpion is getting absolutely destroyed. The Great Swords are more than well enough equipped to absolutely just annihilate the Tomb King front line. Pone just has to get rid of these Tomb Scorpions to make sure that the Great Swords can do their work without being interrupted. Over here, the Royal Altdorf Griffites have been lured by the Chariots into charging the Spearmen. They do need to pull back. They don't want to take unnecessary damage. And we notice that the Tomb King front line is beginning to buckle somewhat beneath the onslaught of the Empire front line, which is just vastly superior. The Carrion are doing their best to try and take things offline. The Hydro Titan did obviously heal up a fair amount, and he is now getting fully engaged in the battle. But Archon the Black is getting very, very low. Karl Franz has jumped into battle and popped Gall Moraz. Archon the Black only has one more good hit to his name, and he's not looking so good. He's looking a little weary. He's starting to crumble. Things are looking rough, and skadoosh! Down goes Archon the Black. No Nagash revival coming up in this timeline. So with Archon dead, the Tomb Kings have completely lost all of their winds of magic, which is really, really bad for them. Although it looks like the Tomb Kings are starting to pull through the front line a fair bit, thanks to the Tomb Scorpions messing up these Great Swords. These gun units have completely rallied. The cannon is still online, and I'm pretty sure that's going to spell a very, very solid doom for the Tomb Kings. I mean, Karl Franz could honestly take on the rest of his army by himself, though he is taking a crap load of damage from the Hydro Titan Tomb Scorpion combo. Karl Franz actually might die here if he doesn't get the hell out of there. That Spirit Leech is doing a ton of damage, and oh my god! Oh my god! Franz gets absolutely bodied, and Franz is dead! Holy crap! That Hydro Titan, along with the, oh, you know what? It's because of the double Necrotect. These double Necrotects providing melee buffs to the Hydro Titan on top of the Vambraces of the Sun. That Hydro Titan just bodied Karl Franz in close combat. But I think it's just a little too late, as the guns do manage to absolutely last samurai, as Turn would say, this Hydro Titan, and he is down. He collapses and slowly but surely tumbles onto his face. That being said, it's not over yet. There are still 2 Tomb Scorpions alive, running around causing damage. The Ushabti summon did shatter the Hammer of the Witches and is getting rid of that Jade Wizard, which is really, really rough for the Empire. That being said, the silver bullets have managed to recover enough to cut down these Ushabti, which is going to be really, really solid. The Altdorf Griffites are really the last big thing that the Empire has going for them. They need to kill the Tomb Scorpions. They need to use accusations from the Witch Hunter, and they need to use the Royal Altdorf Griffites to just butcher these guys. However, the Jade Wizard has rallied, and he gets off a very, very nicely timed, fully upgraded regrowth on the Royal Altdorf Griffites, which is going to help stabilize their wavering health pool. The halberds are getting cut down by Sigmar's Sons and all of these greatswords, so things are looking really, really good for the Empire. They were looking shaky, but the Tomb Kings are slowly but surely going to go down. I have to say, though, big round of applause to Gobbo Slayer for pulling back after Archon got sniped out. I never, ever would have expected Franz to have gotten bodied as hard as he did back there. Here we do see the Tomb Scorpion it's laying a smackdown with its tail onto these spearmen with shields. And it does actually manage to terrify them just when they thought that they were going to be safe. Here we do see another Scorpion going in on the Witch Hunter, but the Witch Hunter is immune to psychology, so he is actually rather ideal for this matchup. He does pop an accusation, trying to get it off the field, and we see it has critical binding. It's starting to fall apart. The other Tomb Scorpion is about to get ridden down by the Royal Altdorf Griffites. If they can get these Tomb Scorpions off the field, they should secure victory, even though things are looking a little dicey. Here we see this one's binding is getting more and more critical. He's about to go down. The Witch Hunter is popping bullets into his back. I say that as he completely whiffs, just like he did in the Vampire Count trailer. And this Tomb Scorpion is clearly trying to get as far away from the Royal Altdorf Griffites as possible, but they are having none of it. They do rally in for a charge here, get a couple of solid whacks on him, even though he is very, very quick and is actually managing to outrun them a fair bit. But down he goes. The Lich Priest powering him, doing so no more. Over here, we see that the Tomb Kings are trying to rally into a single solitary line, but they are starting to suffer a little bit from the lack of troops that they have. The Tomb Scorpion probably needs to sit in the midst of this army and take advantage of all the buffs it gets from the Necrotechs. It's being a little adventurous, but understandably, it's trying to get these guns offline. Unfortunately for the Tomb Kings, these guns just keep rallying, and every single one of these bullets is just slowly but surely spelling a death call. The second Tomb Scorpion goes down, and with that, all that's left is a unit of Skeleton Spear and the Necrotechs. And there's still a very decent in health unit of Greatswords, along with the Royal Altdorf Griffites, numerous units of Spearmen all rallying to the aid, and a Witch Hunter to stabilize the leadership of the Empire. So that is game, but what a close game it was. That was a super close game. Gobbo Slayer did an excellent job of mitigating Professor Pone's strengths and nearly pulling that battle back in his favor. What a game. It's actually probably gonna take a hot minute to bring down these Necrotechs. If I were Pone, what I would probably do is just line up my guns, pull back my infantry, and let the guns just... Man, I can't believe Karl Franz got absolutely massacred by that Hyro Titan. Talk about new strategy, right? I kind of want to try that out for myself on like ladder, using a Hyro Titan with those Van Braces of the Sun to like lure people in and then just like bring the smackdown on them. Up, and here comes in the firing squads. They almost made it. Alright, really solid game though. Like, congrats to both players. They played exceptionally well. Gobbo Slayer nearly had that. He was so close. Alright, so, man, that was crazy. Crazy. Alright. So let's find Gobbo Slayer. Oh no. My bad. Sorry, I just pulled a what was that? What award show did they do that with La La Land? Was it the Emmys? Or where they were like, so and so or La La Land wins, and they were like, wait, sorry, no, wrong. All right, so I'll let y'all. That's the matchup we're going into. So we've got Alien Ambassador versus Rigson. And we are going to... there. And then Turin versus Professor Pone on... There we go. Alrighty. Turn versus Pone, I know it's heartbreaking, isn't it? It's like making two lovers fight each other. It's just wrong on a fundamental level. Do I think Tenhuan will play in the upcoming Lizardmen DLC? Aiden, I feel so confident that Tenhuan is the DLC lord for the Lizardmen that I am willing to accept whatever BS challenge chat would like to propose that I will suffer through if he doesn't. Like, I'm a total bitch when it comes to spicy food. I would eat a Hellburger from a local place in Denton, which, for a record, I tried a tiny bit of their sauce. Like, literally, just like a solid dab of it, and it was agony. Agony. 72-hour stream? Oh my god. I would have to say no to for health reasons, because that would no doubt give me an anxiety attack, just being awake for that long. My brain can't handle that. Shave all of my hair. Okay, I'll accept that one. I'll pull... If it's not Tenhuan, I'll go bald. A mullet? I guess a mullet would be easier to recover from. So sure, we'll go with a mullet. You have to play Mortal Empire's game from start to finish in one sitting as quick head taker? Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Burn your Lizardman army book on stream? Rather chop off my dick. That's a collector's item. How dare you, sir? How dare you? I should ban you for that. Oh, how do I think Tenhuan will play in the upcoming DLC? Oh! I think he will be a pretty... I think he'll be a fairly tanky skink character who will be a melee caster hybrid that has a ton of poison-based mechanics. And I think he'll probably run an anti-infantry bonus to represent his killing blow rule in tabletop. So I'm thinking poison, anti-infantry, fairly decent armor, not as high as Krokar, but definitely higher than Mazdamundi. And then I think he will run, yeah, all that crazy jazz. But I'm just expecting buttloads of poison abilities. Skink buffs? Oh yeah, definitely skink buffs. Oh, cursed like Dawn of War 3? Oh, that's cruel. That's cruel. Raw cauliflower. Tenhuan should summon Carnosaurs instead of Manticores. That'd be kind of cool. If he summoned like a dinosaur instead of a Manicore, that'd be slick. A Feral Carnosaur might be a little too strong. I think maybe a Feral Stegodon would be more fair, or maybe a Feral Bastiladon, but yeah. Lore of Snakes modified beasts, yeah. Or a Feral Troglodon. If they put a Troglodon in, a Feral Troglodon would be kind of cool. Let me see where Alien's at. Oh, they're trying to get worked out, get everybody in the same game. When's the DLC coming out, Jack Gordon? It's not for, nobody knows for sure, but I am my vote is on April. Late April is my vote. I don't think they're going to keep us waiting that long after Three Kingdoms, because you have to remember that the Three Kingdoms team and the Fantasy team are separate teams. They are not working on the same project. So all this time that we've been in a drought while we've been only getting 3K news, they're still working on the Lizardmen versus Skaven DLC. Like, they're working on it. We just haven't heard anything about it because 3K is the next big thing. So they're just wanting to focus all of the hype and the sales and the marketing and the interest on Three Kingdoms. Raw cauliflower, in defense of CA, I will say that although I hate it as much as you guys, that there has been long gaps between all the DLCs, the quality of the DLCs, likely due to those gaps, has gone up exponentially. I do not think anyone could reasonably argue that any of the Game 1 DLCs compares to any of the Game 2 DLCs. I think the worst Game 2 DLC so far has been the Queen and the Crone. But I think that's because they focus too much on creating a lot of awesome campaign mechanics instead of expanding the roster. And I think expanding the roster for Fantasy tends to be more important. But, you know, we'll see what happens. I'll talk about Ikka Claw later. Alright. Yeah, compare Grim in the Grave to Queen of the Crone, exactly. Totally, like, not even close to being same quality. So just a reminder for anyone who joined us late, as we are nearing 250 watchers. Man, I would love to get 300 people on stream, but, you know, we'll get there. So, to start with the Dwarves, we've got 4 units of Dwarf Warriors, 2 units of Miners, 3 units of Slayers, one of which is the Dragonback Slayers. In the core of the army, we've got the Peak Gate Guard and Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, the highest tier infantry the Dwarves can bring. We've got 2 units of Bugman's Rangers with double chevrons. And then we've got a Rune Lord who's fully kitted out with all items and abilities. And then we've got a mostly naked Runesmith who just has Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Over on the Greenskin side, we've got 4 units of Black Orcs, a Goblin Rock Lava, 2 units of Savage Orc Error Boys, a unit of Nasty Skulkers, the 8 Peak Loonies over there, the Arachnarok Queen, and 2 units of Goblins, along with being led by Azhag the Slaughterer up on Skull Muncha, who's got Spirit Leech, Wah, and other junk. So, who will win? Wait, wrong series. And for those of you who are watching, if you're enjoying the tournament, please consider hitting that like button. It helps me out a lot. It's a good way to help out that doesn't really cost you anything. You don't have to watch any ads. You don't have to suffer with whatever. It helps promote the video to other people so that maybe they'll watch it, which helps get the video out to more people, which helps me out, and also potentially grabs us more viewers for future tournaments. Because maybe if we get enough people, maybe CA will, like, notice me, senpai. Alright, so Goblin Rocklopper has already opened up on Norgrimling's Ironbreakers and killed 6 of them with the opening volley, which is awesome. Another volley comes in, killing another 3? Yes, I'm bad. I had to think. It's been a while since I've done math. Any spoilers on the next Who Would Win? Nope, we have not even remotely met for it yet. Me and Turin haven't even talked since the last one was recorded about it. Alright, Dragonback Slayer's taking a little bit of damage. That Goblin Rock Lava, for being rank 1, is definitely going to get some... Oh, see, it's already achieved a rank from killing Norgrimlings. It's definitely going to get some value out of hitting these dwarves early. Azhag is starting to swoop in here, though he does need to be careful. He is getting off an early Spirit Leech on the Rune Lord, who of course does have very high magic resistance, but he will still take some damage. Looks like he's maybe going to take 300 damage. Alright. We've got shots coming in from the Savage Rock Error Boys, but Dwarven shields are well designed to deal with such inferior attacks. But the Black Orcs are coming in on the charge, and they're going to absolutely massacre the Dwarves. Like, this is going to be so one-sided. The Peak Gate Guard need to make sure they go up against Black Orcs, because the Peak Gate Guard will absolutely smash them. But they need to be careful that they don't get overwhelmed by multiple units at once. Here we see the Savage Rock Error Boys are already focusing on the Peak Gate Guard, which is an excellent shot, because although they do have some missile resistance at 20%, those shots do enough armor piercing to count. And they are going to get heavily surrounded, and all this terror causing is going to be a problem. It would have been way better for the PK Guard to charge in with the Dwarf Warriors, because then they would have had each other to support. Plus, the PK Guard would have been able to... They have armor sundering, so they would have been able to really help out against these Black Orcs. But Wah has been popped just as the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers and the PK Guard enter the fray. And because of that Wah giving that massive melee attack buff, you can see the Peak Gate Guard and the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers getting absolutely annihilated. The Greenskins are just tearing the Dwarves apart. And this sneaky attack from the rear with the nasty Skulkers and the Warlords Boys went off without a hitch. And the Dwarves are completely collapsing in on themselves. The Arachnarok Queen is easily running around just doing whatever the hell she wants. The Dwarves don't have an easy answer to her. They do have Slayers, but all the Slayers are really overoccupied trying to get the flanks under control and are in really unfavorable matchups. Looks like one of them slipped through to deal with the Error Boys, but they're getting crossfired by the units that aren't fleeing, so that's not going to do a whole lot of good for them. We do have Runes of Wrath and Ruin and Master Runes of Wrath and Ruin being popped on Black Orcs, but it's just way too little, way too late. And all this terror is going to do a really good job of seeing off any of these infantry blocks thanks to the Arachnarok Queen and Azhag. And things are not looking good for the Dwarves, man. Things are not looking good for the Dwarves in this particular semifinal. This grudge will not be avenged. I mean, there's still like a almost full health unit of Black Orcs running around, and the Dwarves have just been decimated. The 8-Peak Loonies are up against Slayers, which that's a very favorable matchup for the 8-Peak Loonies, because they do poison damage, which is going to significantly nerf the stats of the Slayers, and they're unbreakable, so they'll fight to the bitter end, but they are much less valuable than the Slayers are. Here we see that the Dwarves, just like last game against the Beastmen, have rallied into a bit of like a super pocket to try and hold out. This is actually probably what the Dwarves should have done at the beginning. I think a super pocket actually would have done really well for them. Just like a really dense formation once they actually got to the front line. We do see that the Rune Lord got 8, guys. I don't know if it was Azhag or the Arachnarok Queen, but he got absolutely nommed. Him and the Runesmith, they are just... okay, the Runesmith shattered, but the Rune Lord also shattered. Okay, they didn't get nommed. They just decided, I didn't sign up for this. And that's game. Army losses has kicked in. Only thing left are Slayers. Woof! That was brutal. Absolutely brutal. The Ragnarok Queen and the and Azhag just absolutely terror bombed that front line, because the Rune Lord actually had the ability to make the front line immune to terror, but he wasn't close enough. Alien Ambassador's army was actually too spaced out, which is not often you see something happen or you talk about in intense multiplayer. Typically, when you want to be fairly... The more spread out you are, the better, almost to an extent. But for the Dwarf line, they had a lot of really powerful buffs that weren't able to synergize properly because they were all too far apart, which is just super unfortunate. Alright, so with that, Rickson has moved on to the finals with the Greenskins. So, no matter who wins this other semifinal, guys, we are getting a new race as a champion this week. Isn't that exciting? No high elves, no lizardmen, no undead. It's either Empire, Dwarves, or Greenskins at this point. All right. I hate when that happens. Off to the final of the semifinals. We've got Battle of the Good Friends. The Dwarves versus the Empire. How would Ikit Claw play? So Ikit Claw is almost certainly going to be the first of the heavily armored Skaven Lords, because he wears like he has a full mecha suit that's like plate armor, and he has a super high armor save despite being an infantry model. So he's going to be very, very heavily armored. He has a halberd, so he's probably going to have anti-large armor piercing, maybe charge defense. It's going to be kind of hard imagining how he won't just be a much better version of Tretch. But then again, Tretch has the ability to stealth himself and is super cheap. So that's probably what Tretch is going to be good at. Also, Ikit Claw has a bunch of abilities. Like he has a bound spell Warp Lightning that comes out of his halberd, which is known as the Storm Demon. He also has a Warp Fire Thrower built into one of his arms. So he'll probably have like Throg's Puke, essentially, or like a Bound Scorch or something, where either that or it'll just be a regular shooting attack, but he'll have the ability to scorch units. And he's a wizard. He is a Lore of Ruin caster. Can he run a Death Wheel? I mean, he invented the Death Wheel, so probably, but in Tabletop he only came on infantry. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. So looking at Turin's dwarf army, who will hopefully be avenging their kin who fell very recently, we've got 3 units of dwarf warriors, 2 units, no, we got 4 units, if I remember right. No, 3. Yep, 3 units of dwarf warriors, 2 units of longbeards with great weapons, 4 units of thunderers, 2 units of slayers, one of which is dragonback slayers, one of which is giant slayers. Oh no, there's the 4th unit of dwarf warriors. I knew there were 4. And then there's also 4 units of miners. We've got a cannon back here, and then we've got a rune lord and a runesmith, both just with their version of the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, or excuse me, a Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Over here for the Empire, we've got Karl Franz with Golmraz and the Reichland Runefang, a Jade Wizard with Regrowth and Earthblood, and a Witch Hunter with Slippery and Accusation. We've got the Royal Altdorf Griffites, and then we've got a front line of Spearmen with Shields and Sigmar's Sons, 2 units of Great Swords, 2 units of Handgunners, one of which is the Silver Bullets, and the Hammer of the Witches, which is going to be very valuable against the Dwarves. It does do magic damage, which negatively impacts its damage by 25%, but it does have physical resistance, which will make it of 25%, which will make it stand up very, very nicely to the dwarf cannon. And it's also a higher rank, so it does more damage and is more accurate, generally. Alright, and we're off. So it's going to take a little bit for the dwarves to cross this battlefield. They do have this lovely tree line blocking a good portion of their army from the Hammer of the Witch's position, which is good because that means any shots fired at them might be intercepted by the trees instead. It's always funny to me when they have like storm effects and it's like a blue sky. Alright, so the Hammer of the Witches has opened up on the Longbeards, and it actually gets a flank shot. So it does manage to kill 12 of them in a single volley. I think that was actually with a single cannonball, which is just mwah, beautiful. Alright, meanwhile, the Dwarf Cannon has opened up counter battery, firing at Karl Franz, and unfortunately, the shot that he was not paying attention to missed, which is just super unfortunate. Looks like it's now moving up to deal with the Royal Altdorf Griffites, who look like they're trying to tuck away into these woods. That being said, Turin knows where they are, so all Turin has to do is alt right-click if these guys try and hide in the forest, and he can still shoot them. Woo! That volley took 4 of them down. What a great shot. They are now running for their lives, but they are in a really dangerous spot. Oh, Pone pops an Earthblood on them, but that was not a great decision because they're already at full health. Problem is 4 models died, but they're at full health despite that. Whoop, whoop. Looks like Pone manages to juke out a few shots that wildly overcompensate and miss. Meanwhile, the Hammer of the Witches is continuing to speak back its retort, looks like, at the Thunderers. And the Empire is going to need to start moving towards the Dwarves once they take this hill. Because if the Thunderers get on this hill and the Empire is just sitting back here, they are going to get massacred. Here we see the cannons have switched their aim onto Karl Franz, and they do manage to nick him for a decent amount of damage. Meanwhile, some miners are trying to slip around the edge, probably looking for a clever way to get into the back line. Here, the silver bullets are opening up into the Dwarven warriors, but these guys are not going to do super good. They do magic damage, and the dwarves have bronze shields, so they're going to ignore a ton of this damage in comparison to this unit, which is probably going to do way better. Here we see the Thunderers from Turin's line have taken high ground, so it's likely they'll be able to see over their friends and keep firing into the melee. We see both Runes of Wrath and Ruin do go down on the Greatswords, vastly slowing their speed, which is going to negatively impact their charge damage, and it allows them to take more damage from the Thunderers, who, you can see because of this hill, are able to still shoot into melee. The cannon is continuing to fire into the Thunderers, trying to find a way to deal with them. Meanwhile, the Dwarf Cannon is continuing to fire into the Demigryphs, already cutting them down to 17 unit models. Here, Karl Franz does fly over the melee, but he's already getting fired at by a ton of dwarves. He needs to be very careful. Here he dives in on the Rune Lord, but the Rune Lord is not sticking around for that. He's getting the hell out of dodge, and because he's an infantry unit, he does get punted. And the Dragonback Slayers are like, ah, hell no, you get the hell out of here, Franz. And these guns are absolutely doing so much damage. Here he dives into the back of the Dwarf Warriors, which instantly causes them to be terrified. He does have the Reichland Runefang popped, which is going to help support all these Greatswords and allow them to push through these Longbeards. And here the Greatswords do try and slip around to get into the Silver Bullets, but Pone manages to cut them off with Sigmar's Sons, which is really well played. At least I say that, but Sigmar's Sons look like they're pursuing these dwarves, and so they don't cut off the dwarves. And the dwarves proceed to just charge straight through. Karl Franz is already at his healing cap, likely due to an overcast regrowth, and he is broken and is getting absolutely annihilated by these Thunderers. He needs to get the hell out of there and just support from a distance. But oh man, he's taking so much damage. The Dwarf gun line is still highly unmolested. They have gotten a unit of Dragonback Slayers and a unit of Miners into the guns who are absolutely going to slaughter them. The only thing really going well for the Empire is that they punch through this part of the front line, and they still got 2 units of Greatswords who will slowly be able to keep moving. But there are 4 units of Thunderers alive, and they will have no problem taking down the Empire command if the Empire does not find a way to deal with things. Over here, the Altdorf Griffites were routed by either gunfire or the cannon, and they're only down to 7 models, and they've only gotten a single kill. The Royal Altdorf Griffites have been totally shut down by Turin's play, and he's done a good job of just keeping some Dwarf Warriors just parked back there, daring those Altdorf Griffites to come back and fight him. Here, the Miners do manage to get on the Hammer of the Witches, who do abandon ship, trying to get away, but they are not that fast, and the Dragonback Slayers decide, never mind, we're not going to jump on you, we're going to jump on you, and they come in. Looks like they're trying to find a home. Turin's doesn't seem to be super sure where he wants to put them. He does turn back around and go after Sigmar's Sons, though, trying to get that unbreakable unit off the field, understandably. Here, the Thunderers do manage to break the Witch Hunter and see him off the battlefield, at least for the moment, though it looks like some Dwarf Warriors might continue chasing him. Thunderers are continuing to do some really good damage, and they're starting to speak counterfire into the handgunners, who obviously are not going to enjoy that exchange because the Thunderers actually have shields, which allows them to trade very favorably with other missile fire, whereas the handgunners do not, which is going to be a bad time for them. Here, Karl Franz is very close to his healing cap, and he's flying around trying to find a place while being very cautious of those guns. At least that's what he probably should do, but he flies directly into their arc of fire. 2 cannonballs come in, do a ton of damage, and the Emperor has fallen. Again. Alright, so Karl Franz and Deathclaw are dead. The Witch Hunter is gone, shattered or dead, and army losses starts to kick in, and that is game. GG. So the Dawi have claimed vengeance against those faithless, gutless dogs, the Empire of Man, for all their faultiness, and we're gonna have a Dwarf versus Greenskin grudge match for the finals. Alright. Turin versus Rigson. So let's update the thingamajigger. Alright, so that's the that's how things are looking today. And let's move on to the final battle. Real quick, I'm going to check Streamlabs because it just occurred to me that if anybody's donated using Streamlabs, their donation would not have popped up because my alert box is broken at the moment. So I'm just going to waddle over here and make sure that nobody's sitting there like, what a douchebag. He, like, I gave him money and he, like, didn't say anything. Okay, we're good. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. Oops. All right. Also, for those of you who are new to this tournament format, what makes this unique, the challenge of the old ones as I call it, or a lot of people refer to it as the tabletop tournament, is that this tournament is just like on tabletop, where you would have to pick your entire army before you showed up for the tournament and submit it, and you're not allowed to change it. So basically, if you get signed up for this tournament, you have to submit a list without knowing what maps you're going to fight on, without knowing who your opponent is or what armies they're bringing. You have to design an all-comers list, which means that it's an army designed to fight any possible opponent, or at least the best of your ability to do that. And then you show up, I roll some dice to randomize who fights who, and it's a single, it's a best of one elimination style tournament. So there's always 7 games? Yeah, there's always 7 matches. Tournament almost always takes us around 2 hours, and it's super fun, short and to the point. Alright, so just going over the armies one last time. And also, let's see some support in chat. Who are you rooting for? Are you standing with Rigson, or are you gonna go with the Throng of Turin? Let's see some teams signing up in chat. For Turin's side, we've got a Dwarf Cannon, 4 units of Dwarf Warriors, 4 units of Miners, 2 units of Longbeards with great weapons, 4 units of Thunderers, 2 units of Slayers, Dragback Slayers, and a unit of Giant Slayers. We've got a Rune Lord and Runesmith, both with their respective form of Wrath and Ruin. How are the ones that compete selected? People message me, and if I have too many people register, like I did this week, I will decide who to pick. Usually I roll dice, but sometimes I'll pick if like it's somebody that's never played before, or if it's somebody who like has always made it to the like Falcon, like whoever wins the previous week, I like to try and have back. You know, so just stuff like that. All right, for the Greenskins, we've got Azhag the Slaughterer up on Skull Muncho with Spirit Leech. We've got a Goblin Rock Lava, 4 units of Black Orcs, the Arachnarok Queen. We've got the 8-Peak Loonies and a unit of Nasty Skulkers, 2 units of Goblins, and 2 units of Savage Orc Error Boys. And the Arachnarok Queen, which I think I already said, but just in case I'll reiterate. Alright, and with that, we are off for the final battle. So Turin has won this tournament before. He won the very first Challenge of the Old Ones with his Vampire Coast build. So we'll have to see if he can reclaim his throne with his Dawi here, or if Rixon, who's participating with us for the first time, even though he is a very famous tournament player, will be claiming the cup for himself. What's the history behind the Arachnarok Queen? I would have to do some thorough checking. I'm not sure the Arachnarok Queen is an actual thing. I think CA made it up. A lot of the units from the more recent Lord packs. So Grim in the Grave came out of one book. Everything came out of one book. A lot of the following units from like the King and the Warlord have been a bit. Some of them are not super well established. The Arachnarok Queen, though, if I had to guess, is probably just a super big Arachnarok. I would have to check. I'd have to check some books. All right, and we're off. So the Goblin Rock Lava has a perfect arc of fire to go over those trees, but Turin does a very nice job of avoiding it somehow. Looks like he, I'm not sure if he intentionally dodged that or if it was just an accident, but it looks like he's falling back to the cannon to provide it with some more defenses. The cannon, in the meanwhile, has opened up counter battery fire, and it narrowly misses Azhag and narrowly misses the Black Orcs with all 3 shots. Oh, so close. So, because both of these players have siege weapons, they technically don't have to engage until they're out of ammo. Obviously, they probably will, because there are advantages to getting a move on. But for Turin, it's kind of just obviously Turin kind of has a disadvantage that he doesn't have the forest on his side of the field, so he will continue taking boulders if he doesn't engage. But he does want to be very, very careful with how he does that, because he doesn't. The thing with Turin right now is he doesn't know where the stealth units are. He doesn't know where the Nasty Skulkers and the 8-Peak Loonies are. So Turin's trying to keep an eye out for when those units are going to appear so he can counter them. Meanwhile, he is continuing to fire cannonballs at Azhag, clearly trying to get an early free hit on him for some good damage. Obviously, neither the Dwarves nor the Greenskins have any healing, so every attack that hits and does damage, that's free real estate, that's free damage. That being said, Azhag looks like he may have gotten nicked, just barely. I don't think so. No, he's still at max health. And the Rune Lord actually did eat a volley of stones there, but it didn't do anything to him. Yeah, I even got a flashing emblem that was like, the Lord is under attack, and it just did no damage. It looks like, though, the cannons have turned back around to face front, and they are now firing at the Goblin rock lavas, which will absolutely fall apart if they get hit by a cannonball. Goodness gracious. My allergies are acting up today. Here we do see the Savage Orc Arrow Boys come up to try and exchange some fire onto the Thunderers, but the Thunderers are easily going to win this engagement, along with a regular Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which will cut through their physical resistance like it's not even there because it's magic damage, so they're just going to ignore that. Back here, Azhag has flown up behind the Dwarves and drops a Spirit Leech on the Rune Lord, which will do some damage, not a ton, but a decent amount. The Thunderers do move up and continue their engagement. Here we see that the Nasty Skulkers and the AP Gloonies have been spotted by Turn's forces. So here he pops a Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin to slow those Nasty Skulkers to an absolute crawl. And isn't even engaging with them. He's just using his Thunderers to try and mow them down. Here we see the Goblins are running forward to try and engage and take the guns offline at least for half a second. But Turin's not allowing it. He is just falling back where necessary to make sure that the Greenskins pay with blood for every inch. Here, the AP Gloonies have been surrounded by Dwarves, but Azhag does fly in to provide support and just absolutely shredded some poor Dwarf. And he is providing support through causing terror and, of course, through doing damage. Here, we do see the Thunderers are trying to rally back to support those Dwarves and get Azhag out of here, at least for the moment. Especially the Dragonback Slayers, but Azhag is not sticking around and goes ahead and pieces out. Here, the cannons have changed their target onto the Arachnarok Queen, which they have knocked her down to 75% of her max health already. We see a Rune of Wrath and Ruin has gone down to the Black Orcs, which is doing considerable damage. Not to mention slowing them to give by the Dwarves some more time. The Black Orc line is, of course, now approaching the main battle line, and although there is a ton of fire coming in from this flank, I have no doubt a Wah is about to go down, which is going to allow the Black Orcs to absolutely decimate whatever part of the line they run into. The Goblin Rocklobber continues firing in on the Dwarves, trying to cause disruption and damage, and the Black Orcs have received their Wah boost, which does give them a very nice speed bonus, which the Dwarves, for the most part, look like they're trying to fall back to prevent the Black Orcs from getting into battle as long as possible so they cannot take advantage of their Wah. But with that speed buff, the Dwarves are going to probably need to turn around and engage, because unfortunately for them, they're not going to be able to outrun the Black Orcs. Here we do see the Black Orcs are starting to absolutely smash the front line, and the Rune Lord actually gets caught. Turin needs to pull this guy back, like, immediately, like, pop Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin on these Black Orcs and get the hell out of there, because he is taking so much damage. Here he does get off the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, but Azhag was paying very close attention to this auspicious moment and does manage to slap the Rune Lord with a Spirit Leech, doing more damage. But Azhag did get a little overzealous to accomplish that and does eat quite a bit of Thunder Fire for his trouble. So he does need to be very, very careful. And here he does pop Foe Seeker, allowing him to immediately get the hell out of here before he takes too much more damage. The Rune Lord has managed to successfully fall back, and we see the Arachnarok Queen is trying to summon enough Spiderlings to get onto the Thunderers, but these Slayers are being very, very good about keeping in their way and making sure they cannot get a decisive engagement. Over here, the Thunderers are continuing to fall back without fail to make sure they keep as much space between them as the Greenskins as possible, and the balance of power has started to tip into the Greenskins' favor. Another Spirit Leech does go down to the Rune Lord, and it looks like Azhag may be coming in to party himself, but he's trying to avoid these Thunderers, but he does dive in. But oh man, the crossfire! He has to fall back. Turin is doing a brilliant job of making sure that Azhag just does not get an opening. The instant that Azhag starts turning towards the Rune Lord, all those Thunder units immediately shift so that they're facing inwards. However, this unit does not have the luxury of being in the center, so they're getting torn apart by Azhag. Meanwhile, these Goblins are trying to get onto these Thunderers to take them offline so Azhag does not eat a volley for his trouble. Unfortunately, though, these Dwarf Warriors are doing a great job of shutting them down and breaking them, so these Thunderers are free to open fire. Though Azhag does pop Foe Seeker and immediately evacuates the premises, and some Black Orcs are trying to run in here to salvage the situation, but Turin is not one to let a advantageous moment slip him by, so all these guns immediately open fire and start speaking into the Black Orcs in a tongue they'll understand by punching through all their heavy plate. Over here we see the Black Orcs have condensed into a super blob, which is going to be pretty bad for them because that means all these Thunderers firing in, any bullets that narrowly miss the unit they're aiming for very likely are going to overshoot and hit another unit behind them. 2 of these Black Orc units have broke, one of which is completely shattered. So that's a full Black Orc unit off the field. Here Aztec dives into another unit of Thunderers, while this Black Orc unit does catch this unit of Thunderers. But it looks like the cannons have turned their attention onto Azhag and are opening fire. And these Thunderers are also turning to open fire into these Black Orcs, who are being pursued by Dwarf Warriors. And now they've got a full health unit of Giant Slayers coming in to absolutely rip into them. And these Giant Slayers are going to lay a spanking on those Black Orcs. Over here we see the fleeing Black Orc unit still hasn't rallied. The Ragnarok Queen is only down to 727 HP. And with that, army losses kicks in. And the grudges have been avenged. It has happened. The Dwarves have claimed victory at long last after weeks and weeks of suffering. The Karazankor has been avenged. And Turin has reclaimed his throne as the champion of the old ones. What a game. Turin just did a beautiful job of just constantly backing away, luring the Greenskins further and further and further into that death trap of the quadruple Thunderers. What an amazing dwarf list, which for dwarves, very hard for them to do well in all-comers in my opinion. So to see them actually claim victory now, that's awesome. Zibrion, Turn has won twice. Felcon has won 3 times, I think. Falcon's won with his High Elves, his Tomb Kings, and his Lizardmen. Alright, and that is game. The Dwarves have reclaimed victory at long last. Alright, so let's bring up the thingamabobber. Oh, I see what I did. Okay. And Turin is this week's Grand Champion. Awesome. Isn't that just lovely? So, of course, congratulations to Turin on his great victory and success. Thank you all for watching. Also, we picked up a new Patreon during this stream, so thanks to Blaze. I'm sure we'll be in touch. Not an insignificant patron either. Thank you. Goodness. I'm going to go ahead and start our... 1 second. Going to go ahead and pop on our outro music here. But thanks so much for joining us, everyone. This was a nice, compact stream at just less than 2 hours. Everybody showed up on time this week, which was a blessing. So, congrats again to Turin. Congrats to everyone who played. We had nothing but great games. It was really interesting. We had a lot of really powerful players like Flying Taco, Felcon, and Goblet Slayer actually get sniped out this week. So, congrats to everyone who played. Absolutely great time. And we have yet to see a single race win twice in the Challenge of the Old Ones. So now we're standing at week 1 went to the Vampire Coast, week 2 went to the Tomb Kings, week 3 went to the Lizardmen, week 4 went to the High Elves, and now at week 5 the Dwarves have claimed victory. I just realized we need a Chaos race to win. We have yet to see Beastmen or Norska or Warriors of Chaos claim a win. So those are definitely races I'll be rooting for in the upcoming weeks. Alright, thanks again everyone for watching. I'll let this just kind of set up so everyone can bask in the fact that we have an operating We have an operating roster now. So thanks again for watching. It's been a pleasure. To everyone who donated today, thank you so much for your support. It means a lot. Helps me pay bills, especially student loans. Put food on the table and all that jazz. So thanks for watching, guys. I will see you next time. If you haven't already, be sure to go over to my channel and check out me and Turin just put out the most recent Who Would Win, which is episode 4. It's an hour long of just lore talk and some awesome editing by Eric the Red to show some badass fight scenes and learning a lot about some of your favorite characters and maybe even some characters you haven't heard of, including some epic matchups like Krokgar versus Vlad von Karstein, the Fey Enchantress versus Alariel, and other matchups like that. So be sure to drop by and check that out if you haven't already. And without further ado, that's it for me today. So thanks for watching. I might be back later this evening with Battlefleet Gothic 2 Armada. No promises though. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.